Deadlock is an incredibly well-crafted game, and part of that is because every hero has their own motivation for summoning the patron. Some for power, some for safety, but all pretty valid reasons. What I wanted to do today is take a look at every hero's backstory and see who has the darkest one, and in a way the biggest reason to summon the patron. Getting into this, I plan to mostly use the backstory page for each hero to decide this, but if there is something else I know or anything I find interesting on the wiki or forums, I'll make sure to add that too. So far there are 32 heroes in the game, with the recent addition of the 6 new ones, all with unique and interesting backgrounds, of course, for the most part. If you don't know what I mean by that, let's just start the video. Let's see, Lash. Here we go. Oh, right. I mean, there's not much to say here. From everything written on Lash, he's just a jerk. He supposedly has a job, or did have a job on airships, which is backed up by Krill calling him a stevedore, and his old model's tattoos had an anchor with clouds, or a zephyr, which is a type of wind spirit. He's also the champion of the Bear Pit, which is an underground fighting arena for gambling on fighters. But his actual reason for fighting in the ritual isn't said outright, so I'm guessing it's for like power or fame, something like that based on how he regards himself. But yeah, that's all I could find about Lash. Not a dark backstory by any means, not really a finished backstory really, so I'd say he fits here at the bottom of the list as the least dark backstory. Mirage is on a diplomatic mission as a bodyguard for a djinn named Nashala. Nashala wants to make a deal with the US government to buy a portion of Wyoming to build their nation there. I mean, nothing really dark about this, they just want to build a nation. Side note, why Wyoming of all places? Like, it's empty, it's landlocked. I mean, unless the djinn know something I don't, which they probably do. Like, maybe there's some sort of magical syrup there that allows the djinn to come out of their bottles, or whatever they are, and it's found predominantly in Wyoming. By the way, this is my official guess in case that's why they chose it. Anyway, not a dark backstory, just trying to find a place to build a nation. Bebop was created by Miss Shelley, who was a junkyard attendant, and they were very close. Miss Shelley fell ill a while later, and without her permission, Bebop went and joined the fights in the Bear Pit in order to earn money for her medicine. I'm pretty sure the Bear Pit's illegal, but I'd say Bebop is fighting for a good reason. It's sad she's sick, which is why I put Bebop a little higher, but I mean, she's getting medicine, so she should be fine, and if I had to guess, Bebop is summoning the patron to cure her. So, a little sad, but not dark really, so 30th spot on the list is good for Bebop. Billy just kinda hates everything. I mean, that's pretty obvious just from hearing him speak a little bit. But that's pretty much his whole deal. Aside from the goat head, which when he kills 7, he does make note that the goat head came from some sort of eldritch power and illegal black magic. But that's the darkest part about him. There's nothing else other than that. So yeah, we'll just put him here and move on. Mcginnis is really good at engineering and building stuff, like a soul refiner at 15 years old. I don't know how impressive that is, mostly because there's not been a soul refiner made in real life, but since it does make note of it, I assume it's really impressive. That led to her getting employed by Fairfax Industries in their military department. Now I'd say Mcginnis is a little higher because while she isn't the one killing people or using the weapons that she makes, other than when she does in the game, she is making weapons that are probably being used to hurt people. I mean, I don't know what else people would make weapons for. But yeah, she's not herself using them to hurt people, so I'd say she's probably good right here on the list. Shiv is a member of the Baxter Society, which are basically a bunch of monster hunters. He has a criminal past, but compared to most of the people on here, I don't think that really matters. He has a prosthetic arm as well, which all society members in the game have, so I don't know if they cut it off or do some occult-like stuff to remove it, but it's probably at least a little traumatizing to lose your arm. The patron also mentions that Shiv has a, quote, monster inside him called the Beast. I don't know if that's literal or metaphorical or cut content because his ult was going to transform him into a werewolf or something, but I don't think it makes much of a difference either way for how dark his backstory is. I'd say being a monster hunter though can be a little nerve-wracking, especially with monsters like Drifter or Seven out there. But from what's shown, there are easily darker things that have happened on this list. So Shiv has a good spot right here. Paradox as a whole is an organization that steals really hard to steal things and then puts them in pop-up museums to brag about what they stole. The Paradox that we play as in Deadlock is also intent on becoming the leader of Paradox the organization. From what I know, they don't plan to hurt anyone in their robberies, but sometimes it might be necessary. They also just steal, which doesn't help anyone but themselves, and it's illegal, obviously. There isn't really much else to add. I think that Paradox has a good spot right here, not directly focused on hurting anyone, but stealing a lot of big and historical artifacts. So yeah, the 26th spot is a good spot for Paradox. Mo and Krill are the bouncers of sorts for the illegal smuggling group, the Tunnel Rats. They basically just do what they need to do whenever someone tries to exploit the tunnels the rats use. It doesn't say exactly what they do, but considering what they are already doing is illegal, I don't think they mind being a little harsh with their punishments, but that's up to interpretation. Mo and Krill being a part of an illegal smuggling group is pretty bad, but we don't know what they are smuggling or how dangerous it is, only that it's something illicit. And if everything goes well, then Mo and Krill aren't hurting anyone directly, so I think this is a good spot for them. Wraith is the mob boss of the gambling scene in New York and has committed many bribes, shakedowns, and blackmails to keep the law from her. While it doesn't say it, she has also probably killed people, but there's nothing to prove it. Aside from that, a person above the law is very dangerous, so not really good for her to be in the position she is. Unless you're her, then it's a pretty good position. There isn't much else to talk about though, so I'll just leave her here on the list. Dynamo is a professor and scientist who, when an astral gate suddenly opened in Central Park, he wanted to be the first person to investigate it. But what came from that is his body was atomized into a dying star, and now he just wants to get his body back. Now, while this was likely a traumatic experience, I mean, I wouldn't know, I've been turned into a dying star, he's still alive and still is able to live his life. And now that the ritual is happening, he still has hope to get his body back. So is this story dark? Not really, in my opinion. One bad thing happened, and now he's just reversing it. Granted, it was a really big thing that happened, and like I said, probably traumatic, but still, I don't think it's all that dark. So I think Dynamo has a pretty good spot here on the list. When Henry was a kid, he wasn't allowed to play with real magic, so his parents gave him some cards and Henry became quite good at sleight of hand. Moving to high school, he met Savannah and they quickly fell in love through their mutual interest in stage magic. Their love was so intense that they bound their souls together by hiring a blood mystic to do just that, which I'm sure could never turn out to be a bad thing. But then a stage accident killed both of them and they blame each other, saying it's the other's fault. But due to the soul binding, they're kept stuck together. So to save themselves from an eternity of arguing over whose fault it was, they want to sever the binding and move on. This situation kinda sucks. It's like Dynamo, where something bad happened and now they just want to fix it. But in this case, they both lost their lives instead of their bodies, which I'd say is probably worse. So yeah, kind of the same sort of situation as Dynamo, but worse. Which is why I think Sinclair belongs here. Paige grew up in a family that valued kindness, magic, and storytelling, but her parents refused to let her younger brother, Bryce, dabble in more dangerous magic, which I think is pretty reasonable. He eventually cracked though, and for unknown reasons got kicked out of the house while Paige was elsewhere. Now, after becoming a talented bibliomancer, all she wants to do is find her brother. For a while, I had a theory that her brother could be 7, but I don't think that's true anymore. One, because 7 very well could be older than Paige, which makes that impossible. And 2, because Vyper says that she's met her brother, and Vyper doesn't say anything about it being 7, and 7 doesn't mention anything about meeting Vyper, and it just doesn't work out if you look too much into it. Regardless of who it is though, it's a heavy burden to bear knowing that your younger brother is missing and is more than likely performing dangerous magic that could be harmful to both him and the people around him. And the uncertainty of that is pretty dark to me. So I'd say Paige is good here at the 21st spot. Ivy sprung to life out of her stone form when a father and daughter were suddenly attacked in front of her. She sent the attackers running, and the daughter named her Ivy. The family who she saved were the Arroyos, and they took her in as one of their own. Ivy learned about the Mendoza Syndicate, which were the ones responsible for hurting both the Arroyos and other nice people of Spanish Harlem. After 18 years of fighting, Ivy was finally able to dismantle the Mendoza Syndicate and free Spanish Harlem from their grasp. But now, Ivy doesn't really know what to do with her life after so much time spent on one goal, so she's headed to New York to find something to do. I don't know exactly what to call the Mendoza Syndicate. I'd probably go with, just a big gang. Ivy tells Vindicta that she dismantled them without murdering everyone, too. I don't know if that means she killed no one at all, but I don't think it matters too much. Either way, dismantling a crime organization is probably going to get really dangerous, especially 18 years worth of it. But she pulled it off now, so she's free from it. I wasn't able to find anything that goes into the specifics of what she did, but like I said, it was dangerous. So I think this is a good spot for Ivy. Vyper is a major criminal who has done time in every prison in the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. She has also escaped every prison in the tri-state area. Her crimes aren't specified, so I can only guess, but the fact she's been to every prison in the area means she's constantly doing something to hurt others in some way. And it doesn't help her case when other criminals are on the list of those who really want her dead. Basically, just a lifelong criminal that goes in and out of jail on the regular. If I had to guess, probably weekly or bi-weekly. But it doesn't say the severity of her crimes, so I'd say this is the spot for her. Haze is part of the Sandman division of the OSIC, basically supernatural CIA. The Sandmen are tasked with going into people's dreams, and if they are a threat, kill them in their sleep. Which is absolutely terrifying. Imagine the scariest nightmare you've ever had, and now imagine if you could actually die in it. That's awful. Then again, it could be a non-painful death, like dying in your sleep, but I imagine that the OSIC wouldn't just kill them, they'd probably torture information out of them too, if they're a person of interest. So to rephrase, imagine being tortured in your dreams, and then also dying in said dream. This is all speculation though. Like I said, it could be as simple as dying in your sleep, but it's still scary knowing someone could just kill you in your sleep like that. So I think Haze belongs right here. Mina is the daughter of very rich parents, and she was arranged to get married to a very rich husband as well. But before she was legally married, her husband was murdered. This husband is all but confirmed to be Pocket, as implied by Mina herself. She wishes she was able to get married before Pocket supposedly died, because then she would be rich. Not that she isn't already, but too bad, so sad. Her parents, feeling bad for her, decided to pay a small fortune to have a vampire turn Mina into one as well, and in turn making her immortal. Mina accepted it as a worthy plan B, and now she is going to quote-unquote work her way up from the bottom of vampire society to the top, and become Viscount of New York. I'd say this story would be more dark if Mina actually cared about Pocket as a person, but clearly she doesn't. Some might say that makes it more dark, but I'm not one of them. Still, someone was murdered, at least supposedly, which is messed up. So Mina is good here at the 17th spot on the list. Kelvin was a famed researcher who planned a grand expedition to the Arctic to find a supposed 8th astral gate. Unfortunately, he and his team of researchers never returned. A year later though, his frozen body was found, and when taken out of the water, he was alive, but with no pulse and no blood coming from his wounds. After being cleared, Kelvin's goal now is to find out why he's alive and what happened on the expedition. The thing with Kelvin's story is that he doesn't remember what happened, obviously, so there's no telling what actually did. The only thing we know is that everyone besides Kelvin died. Well, actually died, you know what I mean. Which is an unspecified amount of people. But I'm gonna say probably about 15 to 20, which is a horrible tragedy. But Kelvin also doesn't have any idea what's going on, which is similar to Victor, where they're both alive but dead in a way. And that has to have a heavy toll on his conscience. Something like survivor's guilt. In all, it was an accident, but a bunch of people died, and no one knows how or why, so I'd say that Kelvin fits well at the 16th spot. Calico is a lot like Shiv, previous member of the Baxter Society, but she left because she found that being an assassin paid better. She even has a prosthetic arm like Shiv, because she was a part of the Baxter Society. So yeah, basically Shiv, but kills people instead of monsters. To be fair, she is an in-demand killer, so she is likely killing a lot of people pretty often. One of which was supposed to be Pocket, but we'll get there when we get there. Calico kills people for money pretty often, and that's a pretty evil thing to be doing. So the 15th spot is a good spot, I'd say. Warden comes from a lineage of militant alchemists who train for the day that they have to fight off a mystical apocalypse. But over time they neglected their teachings, and when the first maelstrom hit, they weren't ready. So from birth, Warden's parents raised him to be a living weapon, with the only goal of stopping the patrons from entering the world. Imagine being the only one who knows what the patrons are going to do if they get summoned, and having to train your entire life for that one moment. Like, that has to be a pretty miserable experience, right? Knowing that if you want to take a break or get burnt out of training, you're reminded that you're the only one capable of stopping the patrons. And if you don't train, you might throw away your only chance at doing so. At least that's what he believes. There's other people capable of stopping the patrons. That's why it's a 6v6 game, but I digress. I just imagine from Warden's POV, an awful life devoted to one thing, which is stopping a godlike entity, which I find to be a dark and daunting existence. So I'm putting Warden at the 14th spot on the list. Viscus comes from the deep ocean, and for a long while, everything was chill. The astral gate down there hadn't brought anything dangerous for the most part, only mild things like the Loch Ness Monster had come through. One day though, a creature known as the Adversary came through and absolutely ravaged the deep. And now the psychic sea anemone Viscus is searching for help on land, because eventually the Adversary won't be content with just the ocean. I find Viscus' story to parallel Warden's in a way. They both know something big and dangerous will happen if they don't do something, and they're the only ones who can stop it. Except Warden has trained for this, and Viscus hasn't. Viscus is helpless unless he can find someone, and he's forced into summoning the patrons because no one else can help. So I'm gonna put Viscus here at the 13th spot. Infernus, as of right now, is just a mellow bartender who, if someone is getting a bit too rowdy, he might give them a bit of a spark, but nothing too crazy. That being said, in his youth, he participated in a good bit of murder, arson, and evidence disposal. You know, like normal. It doesn't say quite how much of this he did, but it does say no small amount, so he caused a lot of pain and destruction when he was younger. I don't think I have to explain it too much when I put him here at the 12th spot on the list. Vindicta was murdered during the Salem witch trials during the 1690s by a man named John Haythorne. About 200 years later, she was revived by the first Maelstrom, which happened 50 years before the events of the game. So she's been in her ghost form for about 250 years now. Her personal calling in her second life is to hunt down the descendants of John Haythorne, which are a group called the Friends of Humanity, which, as chance would have it, is led by a man also named John Haythorne. Vindicta is kind of like Ivy in a sense, except Ivy wasn't murdered 250 years ago, and Ivy, for the most part, peacefully took down the Mendoza Syndicate, while Vindicta wants to tether Alk Flask, Crow, Echo Shard, Tether, Snipe each one of them, and probably has done so to a few of them already. A very blood-filled backstory that is questionably justified since they are just the descendants of Haythorne and didn't actually kill Vindicta themselves, so Vindicta fits right here on the list. To start off our top 10, Yamato and Kaori were born to the criminal organization the Seventh Moon's top royalty, and they knew they were destined to lead it. When their father died, they both led equally, and it brought lots of success. Yamato proposed an idea that Kaori stay and lead in Japan, while Yamato went to America to set up a presence there. Unfortunately, a good portion of their subordinates didn't like being led by Kaori in Japan. So they staged a coup in which Yamato gave his life to protect Kaori and a handful of loyalists, making it possible for them to escape to America. And in his remembrance, Kaori took on Yamato's name and is fulfilling his dream. From now on, I'm going to refer to the Yamato we play as in-game as Yamato to avoid confusion. I always imagined Yamato as more of a chill person, but the more I hear her voice lines and comments from other characters, like how Vyper says that Yamato killed someone for owing them $100, I realize she's a pretty messed up person. But I guess being born to lead a Japanese mafia of sorts does that to someone. Even still, Yamato lost everything that day, her whole organization and her brother, and now she has nothing but a few loyalists. So that's why I'm giving her the 10th spot on the list. Abrams is an experienced detective that for the longest time solved every case that came across his desk. But then, one day, the tome showed up. The only thing that came with it was a note written in blood that said, "Don't let them have it." No clue where it came from, but since then, his home has been broken into, his office trashed 3 separate times, and his car has been firebombed. So, Abrams is probably a little interested in finding out what this thing is. The uncertainty of this story is what gets me. If I was in this situation, I'd always be on edge, and I'd be so tired of it. But I can't stop because something could happen, and I need to be ready for it. I don't know if Abrams' eyes are normally red, but he definitely hasn't been able to sleep for a while, and also having the tome cuffed to him at all times is a reminder of how much danger he's in. So that's why I think Abrams fits here on the list. Drifter is an ancient vampire who has lived for centuries, implied to be as old as at least the 1650s, and has no care for the laws and norms of vampire society. Tons of people, vampires, and all sorts want him dead, but no one can catch him. He does what he pleases, and what he pleases is murder, as implied by many of his voice lines. And he doesn't just kill, he shreds people. He makes comments to multiple heroes about how he would tear them or others up, from carving them up to tearing their throats out, or how if he was the one to kill Grey Talon's family, he'd have made him watch. Drifter is an insane serial killer who loves to be as brutal and sadistic as possible. Definitely the most cruel person on this list so far. But it doesn't really go beyond brutal murder. There's nothing really behind it, so to me, Drifter belongs here at the 8th spot. Lady Geist was once the most beautiful woman around, but eventually time passed and she became old in a nursing home telling stories of her glory days. Then the first maelstrom occurred and brought many entities into the world, one being Oathkeeper. Oathkeeper came to Geist and offered her youth back in return for the essence of the living. Geist was tempted by this offer and made a pact to bind Oathkeeper to her. He would get fed, but his influence was mitigated and everything was on Geist's terms. Now the second maelstrom is here, and the ward Geist used to bind Oathkeeper is wearing down, and he is hungrier than ever. This is messed up from 2 sides. There's one, a malicious entity that wants to feed on the living, and then there's a woman who enables that feeding just so she can be young again. I don't know how often Oathkeeper has to be fed, but if we go on the low side of 1 person a year, that means at least 50 people have been killed by Geist so she can stay young. That's absolutely evil. And that's only on the incredibly small side. Then there's the fact that Oathkeeper might break out soon, and then who knows what he'll do after that. 2 evil beings both enabling each other, which is why I think this is a good place for Geist. Holiday was a small town sheriff, and she was kinda just doing her own thing and was content with it. Until bodies were found with their rib cages ripped open and entirely picked clean as if by birds. Holiday tracked down the culprit, who by now was referred to as the Troubadour. But when she cornered him, he exploded into a bunch of crows and just flew away. 6 months later, Holiday found his next location to be New York, so she's headed there to finally kill him. Yeah, finding a dozen bodies with their ribs ripped open is maybe a little traumatic, I'd say, but apparently while researching this, I found out it's implied the Troubadour killed her sister too, which, if the other bodies weren't traumatizing, then finding her sister definitely was. Then, when she figured she finally had him, he just disappeared. That must have been very hard to deal with, and it's clear from many of her conversations, she's not in a good headspace right now. With all that in mind, I think Holiday is definitely fitting here at the 6th spot on the list. Pocket, aka Aaron Fairfax, is the eldest heir to Fairfax Industries, but was nearly assassinated on their 18th birthday by a hired calico. The bullet missed their heart, and from then on, Pocket has been in hiding, trying to survive and build a name for themselves, separate from their parents. It's very heavily implied that Pocket's dad was the one to call the hit on them. Pocket also says that they've been in hiding for 5 years now. Imagine hiding and fearing for your life for 5 years, all while trying to figure out how to get out of hiding and retake the company that you are the heir to. And not only that, but also knowing that your own father is still trying to find you to finish the job. Easily, Pocket fits here at the 5th spot on the list. Seven is a nightmare of a person. The game doesn't say what Seven did to end up in the most secure prison for occultists, but it implies something very, very messed up. He was sentenced to death by electric chair, and the strongest ritualists from across the globe bound him down and sought to obliterate his soul so it could never be accessed ever again by anyone. Like I said, he did something very messed up. But it failed. Seven laughed as he controlled the eldritch electricity surging through him to annihilate everyone in the room almost instantly. And then he left the prison, looking forward to what he would bring upon New York City. What are you even supposed to do with this guy? The strongest people from the whole globe couldn't stop him from killing them all. It doesn't say if him being electrocuted is what gave him his electric abilities, but it at the very least improved them. Like, actually, what do you even do? And he says to Viscus that he strives for apotheosis, which in short means to become a god, or achieve godlike powers. There's no way you could stop this guy's sheer brutality, unless you were, like, some kind of actual genocidal god. Doorman is a self-described fledgling god and patron. Not much is confirmed about him though, other than he is definitely a cosmic being, with a small taste for genocide. Doorman says quite often how he loves being feared again, and that he, quote, hasn't slaughtered man like this in a long time, and he tells Paige that he has tormented man for so long. Like, this guy is kind of insane. Well, actually, I wouldn't say he's insane, more like he holds no value for humans and mortals, and he doesn't care to treat them like toys. Like, Doorman was actually just Seven in the past, except he is a god instead of wanting to become a god. So, without question, Doorman is in the 3rd spot on the list for me. Victor was created by someone out of other people. That's pretty much it. That's all the concrete background we get on him. Victor's only goal is to find out who made him and who he's made out of. He can't stand the fact that he doesn't know anything about his existence. And to make it just that little bit worse, he is in constant pain. I don't know what you'd feel if you were in his situation, other than pain. Like, would you feel survivor's guilt? And what about if he does find out who he's made out of, and it's like innocent people who were murdered? That's so messed up, and has to absolutely destroy your mentality. But I can't blame Victor for wanting to know at least. I'm curious to see if we get a visual novel for Victor's story, like how we're getting one for Geist, Holiday, and Ivy, because I think that would be a really good character to see their story played out. But with what we have so far, I can't see him anywhere else but 2nd place. Now onto the final hero. If you haven't figured out who it is already, a hint is that I've mentioned them in the video so far. Now, let's move on to the final hero. Wesley, aka Grey Talon, was one of the founding members of the Baxter Society, with the prosthetic arm to boot. He hunted monsters to protect humanity for 40 years, but in doing so, he forgot about the humans that he wanted to protect most, his family. Seeing that his son had started a family of his own, he realized he only had so much time left with them, so he set down his bow and retired. He sat down with his wife for the first time in forever. He spent time with and loved his grandkids. He even cooked dinner for the whole family to enjoy every Wednesday. Life was perfect. He then got a call. The authorities told him it was a freak accident and his son's home was burnt down before anyone could escape. The time he thought he had left with them was gone sooner than anyone could have expected. But it wasn't just gone. It was taken from him. His son's wife was an Ixian like Infernus. She could put out a fire with so much as a thought. Talon knew there was foul play. So with his bow in hand, he's going to go hunt whoever it is down and make them pay in blood. Holy, what a tragic story. I think this is the worst thing that could happen to anybody. I'm of the firm belief that nothing on earth is worth more to one person than a happy family, and after Talon realized that, it was taken away too fast. You can see how much it affects him from his conversations with other heroes. He has no care for himself and others. He only wants revenge. His weapon is even named The Morning Comes. Morning as in like a funeral. His whole being is consumed by this, and I can't blame him if I'm being honest. His whole life was taken from him after all. I think Talon's backstory easily beats everyone else's in terms of how messed up it is, and it's not even close. So with that being said, I award Grey Talon with the darkest backstory in Deadlock. At least until new heroes are added, then maybe they'll beat him, but for now, Grey Talon is the #1 spot on the list. I am very impressed with how well Valve has written this game. Every character feels well crafted both gameplay wise and lore wise. They are unique and their stories are both compelling and captivating. I plan to make more Deadlock content soon. I have this video in mind on finding how every hero is connected to each other, and I'm really excited for it. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure to like and subscribe. If you think it sucked, go play CS. But for now, I've been HB Rhino, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!